Hey, welcome to Gardenville.tv. Here we are at Bloom. It's 2011 and we are just about to talk to Damian Costello from Damian Costello Garden Designs. Damian, you've designed a garden with Focus Ireland, and congratulations on a wonderful, imaginative garden with huge feeling. Can you explain to us what you did with this garden?
Focus Ireland were awarded a space here at Bloom, and I think that perhaps it was a little bit too much for them to take out on their own, to actually really put a project together with the homeless people and then the customers of Focus Ireland. So they approached me to come up with a couple of designs. I produced 2 or 3 designs, of which this one was what evoked the most interest from the customers. The brief was really very emotive indeed, which was the customers were asked, what does home mean to you? What do you miss about home? And the brief consisted of words like love, shelter, safety, belonging. Very emotional compared to what my normal, very commercial, slick landscaping is. So I went away, spent some of my time where I spent my childhood in Carlow, and basically kind of took note of all the things that I loved the most about this particular area, and came back and replicated some parts of that along with this shelter here in the centre to try and capture those emotions for the customers. And I think that's probably what appeals the most about that, and not a little hobbit house or whatever. It's a fancy garden, really.
You must have had to go into a lot of research to bring yourself back into that space.
I did, yeah.
Feeling of security and all those feelings.
There's things I hadn't thought about in many years about how did I feel, when did I feel most happy, when I was vulnerable. As a very young child, I would have said I was a right grumpy teenager, but I do remember being a very happy under 10.
Yeah.
And
beavering away outside with your
outside
water
playing
and
cowboys and Indians and damming the little river, which kind of is represented here, and the hill behind it. And we'd run down the hill, and we must have been tots, absolutely tiny. So that is really, I did have to go back that far because, I'm just a commercial landscaper designer, so I just, don't have to go that emotional for what I do.
And
really.
How did you find that journey for yourself as a commercial landscaper designer?
Kind of fascinating. It became slightly addictive, even though I was trying to make a few books in the meanwhile with the reception and so on. But this has its own momentum, this thing. So you have to have deadlines with your designing and all the rest of it. So it became really kind of my secondary little kind of guilty pleasure, because I was loving this. I was loving the kind of, really a trip back to my childhood and to the place that I spent a lot of time back then, because I moved out of there when I was 17. It's still where I grew up, but it was fascinating.
And you got a lot of help then from people to work in the garden with you?
Absolutely. We had Deirdre Connolly, the coordinator, who's been fantastic. She was the customer coordinator for Focus Ireland, and people who they have either they're in hostels, they've housed, they have a coffee shop or drop-in places for them. She has grouped up a number of people who are interested, and they would have okayed all of the designs, had meetings about it, given their ideas as they went along, which we took on board each time, and then they became the working team here. So they would, when we set out a task, like when we wove the nest, as we call it here, or the shelter, they would have been 5 to 7 of them every day, plus Deirdre and some volunteers and myself and a weaver. And we all had a go and kept mixing it about, and we ended up with this really random but kind of beautiful structure.
Absolutely, lovely.
Yeah.
And Susan is our horticulturist, so I'm going to ask her to talk to you about the plants. That's where I get out of here. So I'm going to move you over, Susan, and talk to him.
But it certainly took me back. I grew up in the country as well, so just looking at the planting, it brought back, you just feel you're in the country.
Yeah, well,
I know they're commercial plants to a large extent. I mean, you have the beautiful campanula. Which one is that?
It's a Punctata Elizabeth.
Oh right,
yeah.
It's it's the soft colours.
Well, it was the size of what we kind of realised is that we had to give people a show as well.
Yeah.
We couldn't just keep it country, so to evoke the country and give it a little bit of a lift.
Well, I think you've certainly achieved that, because you've got the foxgloves as well, the digitalis, which are pure woodland planting.
Yes,
And they're giving that wonderful statuesque
And we had some of the cow parsley, which is more apparent here, but gone over in places that we've replaced the white. I love the structure of it, but we weren't going to have enough, and we've used this lichness white robin here to pick us.
And then you've got just those patches of the strength of the, I don't know whether the camera can see them, the iris there, the iris instatus.
Yeah.
They're superb.
You're trying to get this little kind of, a proper bloom here and there, just to get the fuzziness to kind of focus a bit,
but
really.
It does it, because I mean, you really do have to work your eyes through it. Because sometimes you can just see everything bang at once.
It's actually a relatively small range of plants used here.
But it's repeated and it's soft and it's fantastic. And the water is really natural. I mean, I'm longing to sort of get the waders on
Same
the fishing
here.
rod.
I've been in there,
oh, you've
believe
been in
me,
there.
several times fixing the edges and getting it all tweaked,
And then, as you say, I mean, you use these hills to represent the hills you grow up with.
Yes, and it was to kind of anchor the building and kind of get that security and the safety feel for the shelter really as well.
Yeah, no, I think it's superb. I really love it, because I think I'd quite happily sit here and read a book all day.
I can't wait to roll down the hill at the end actually and have it straight in. We're going to...
I mean, I can see people looking around, and there's something from every angle for them to see in plant terms, etc.
Everyone says it feels cooler outside when you're standing outside of this one. The actual air feels cooler. I think it's just a visual thing. It's almost placebo. You just actually, it feels cooler because it must be cool,
Super. And the large foliage plant there. Now that's I'm lost on the.
Astilboides tabularis. Bit of damage there after a few days, but fantastically striking.
Yeah. But it's hard to keep everything watered in this temperature.
And the wind and so on we've had.
It's been leading up was drying everything out.
Yeah, we come early and stay late because we don't want to be in the garden watering when people are here.
No,
so
you have to.
they've paid their money, so they've got to have the
practical end of things. There's a lot goes on behind the scenes. A heck of a lot.
There's a little store in there, and you just, if it was your bedroom, you'd lock the door.
Yeah.
So,
well, with this shelter, you could always spend the night here. If
you could, and there was a couple of nights where we almost did have to spend a night because the deadline doesn't change. The show starts and you have to be there. So, but it's been a fantastic experience.
I love the edge of the pond as well. I think that is superb.
Little ferns going in the grass. Just started up and a bit of clover and so on.
Achieved. That was terrific.
So summing up, Damian, how do you feel working with Focus Ireland on producing this garden?
I had a lot of apprehension because, as I said, my background is commercial business. And I think, as I said, it's been incredibly emotional to see what true difficulty some people have and where they've come from to end up in a little flat or a house through Focus, end up in many of these projects. And I think this is probably the biggest one that Focus have done. And for me, it's been incredibly emotional, and it's been a fantastically rewarding part of this. And that was the big thing about the medal, that it would be a good enough medal to really give them the cheer they deserved, really, so.
Well, Damian Costello from Damian Costello Garden Design in conjunction with the Focus Ireland, many thanks for talking to us at gardenville.tv this afternoon.
Thank you. Bye bye.